I want to touch on our hiring process in a little more depth. Can you take us through how do we locate top talent? How do we recruit top talent? And then what does that hiring process look like? And actually, let me bucket that into one question instead of asking you four at once. Let's just talk about, in all the people that you've talked to, what do you consider to be the best way to find top talent?
Our best way by far is finding people that are already successful in whatever role we're looking for.
Yeah. So it's not somebody necessarily applying to your job. It could be somebody that's not even looking.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. We've had some amazing candidates that have come to us and they're now employees and they're doing great. But the people that are A players and our top salespeople are not going to be out looking for a job. They're going to be closing their next deal.
Yep.
So a lot of the best people and the best conversations that I've had have been people that I've been reaching out to. And so we do, we look at every resume that comes in, but we also do quite a bit of outreach every single day to reach out to these people that are already performing in other roles to just see if even if they're not interested, if they know somebody who's interested. Their odds are, even if you personally are not looking for a new opportunity, you can think of at least one person that you know that might be able to or might be interested in hearing about something.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think too, we're not rigid in who we will bring on. Skills can be taught. It's that want. It's that mindset that's really hard to teach. And that's what we look for predominantly. In the earlier episode, we were talking about actions speak louder than words. And how does somebody truly show that they care and that they actually want to help people? And then they get compensated for that, right? Money is not the number one driver. They understand that by adding value to sellers and by adding value, they will eventually get compensated equal to that value. It's such a hard thing to teach, right? And so that mindset, that action is what we look for over and above things on a resume. As somebody that's listening to this, that's hiring people, how do you identify that? That's such a hard thing to identify.
Yeah, so we uncover it with a pretty extensive process because we do a screening call when we have resumes that are qualified, or if we have somebody that would be interested. And so in this screening call, we call it our introduction call. We go over just the basics of the job and we answer any questions that they might have initially.
Yeah.
This tells me so much about somebody because if they come on to this call and they're like, hey, what's the pay? What are the hours? There's nothing wrong with knowing that. And you have to know that by the end of the call anyway, because you have to know if you're going to move forward, if it's going to work, if you're going to be able to feed your family. But I have found that our best people are the ones that are asking, hey, tell me about the team. What's the company like? What are some of the challenges you guys have been facing? What are the kind of people that I'll be talking to? And what are your goals for the ideal candidate? Those are the kinds of questions where I'm like, okay, this person's put some thought into it. We're not just another ad on Indeed that they submitted to.
Yeah. I think that says everything about how they view their potential next position. If it's a numbers game, they're going to treat your job and your company like a number.
Yeah. Is this going to be your next paycheck or is this going to be your career?
100%. Big red flag and warning sign if in the first 5 minutes they ask about hours and pay. I know that sounds weird to probably hear, but your pay and your hours are only going to get you so far. When you're in a company that has big goals and looking to grow, you're going to have to wear multiple hats sometimes. You're going to have to get out of your comfort zone. And there are rewards. There's significant rewards for doing that, right? But this is not a punch in, punch out, clock in, clock out type of thing.
Well, yeah. And we have our comp ranges posted on all of our job descriptions. So you have an idea of what you're getting into when you agree to that call. And so it's hard because it's like, okay, now I know exactly what you are caring about. And yes, jobs are transactional. Everything in the job world is transactional to some degree. But if you're going to spend the majority of your life somewhere, wouldn't you want to believe in the mission and wouldn't you want to actually care about it? And so that's something that is something I really watch for is if your first question is what's the pay? Then I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to sell you on this because I haven't portrayed to you what the most important thing to us is if you're automatically just talking about what we're going to compensate you for.
Yeah. Yeah, I think If you're confident in your sales ability, especially for salespeople, and you know what the comp range is, if you sell and you make sales, you will make money, right?
Yeah, if you're a good salesperson, you're going to make money as long as the comp range is where you need to be.
Right. So if you're a killer salesperson, you should be asking questions about outbound and inbound leads. What's the process for setting an appointment? What's your close rate? What kind of avatar of a seller am I working with? What is the sales cycle? What are some things that I need to look for and look out for, right? These are the kind of questions that are more viable for somebody that's really engaged about the position and wants to know more and not just viewing this as a number. Because let's face it, a lot of our applicants and a lot of people, here's the thing. You said personally, you look at every resume.
I do, yeah.
Okay. I have applied to jobs in the past when I was an engineer, and I used to send off like 50 a day to just random ads because the problem is you don't know if they're actually going to look at it. And the truth is, majority of them aren't. They're just not even going to look at their resumes. So that, unfortunately, is like the mindset of that a lot of people have that are looking for something like this is they treat it the same way. And you got to get out of that. Got to get out of it. So,
yeah, well, and like the market right now, every corporation says that they're like a family. And so I have to be really careful to not say that we're like a family, even though we are. I mean, we spend so many hours a day constantly talking back and forth to each other. Like all of us know so much about each other, and we're like this little like Offer Now family. But if you get on an introduction call and you're like, yeah, like come join our family, people are automatically like, oh, well, tell me about the pay.
yeah, I know we're going through our hiring process and we're not even past the intro call. Work-life balance.
Oh, I hate that question.
Okay, triggering word, right? Most people that are listening to this are like, why is that triggering? Like work-life balance is a thing. It's important. I want to be able to have time spent with my family and friends. How do you define work-life balance?
Yeah, so I define work-life balance as when I'm working. And when something's going on with my family or if I have a responsibility, I want the freedom to be able to do that. I have a family. I have a bunch of animals. I have a big garden. Like I have all of these things in my life that really bring me joy, that really fulfill me.
It's a farm.
And it's like a little farm.
It's a farm. Come on.
I have a milk cow and yeah, it's a farm. And I have a lot of responsibilities in my life that I want to be able to take care of because I've designed my life that way. Does that mean I can only work 4 hours a day? No. That means that when it's time to feed my animals, I expect to be able to go do that without having somebody yell at me and saying, oh, how dare you do something life-wise? And so to me, that's work-life balance, just the freedom to be able to do life, but also getting the job done. And so when I get that question, like, what is the work-life balance? Or do you have work-life balance with your company? I immediately kick that back and say, well, what does that mean to you? What is a work-life balance to you? Because everybody has a very different definition there.
Absolutely. So I love the way that you just described that because the truth is, A players, the worst thing that you can do to A players is try to control and micromanage them. A players are going to meet or exceed their targets consistently. They don't need to be told to do that, right? If you have somebody that's meeting or exceeding targets and you're not allowing them the freedom to do what they need to do in their life and having that schedule flexibility, you're going to burn them out and they're going to leave, right? This is just the truth. Now, if you don't have targets to begin with, this is where I see a lot of maybe new entrepreneurs struggle, is like there's not clear expectations set. They haven't had a deeper why conversation with their employees about their goals, both in the near term and long term. How much money do they want to make? How does that impact different things in their life? What freedoms do they want to have? What things do they want to go do? They haven't had those hard conversations because they're afraid that, there might be a misalignment somewhere. If there's a misalignment, I don't want to know about it because let's just not worry about that. Let's brush that under the rug. At Offer Now Idaho, we're looking to hire A players to run our organization and help us grow our business. Corey, why would somebody want to work with Offer Now Idaho?
Do you want to be challenged? Do you want to grow? Do you want to have people in your culture push you to be the best version of yourself? I do. And that's why I'm here. And in addition to that, do you want to have the chance at growing long-term generational wealth? That's all a possibility with a company that's small, cares about you, and wants you to be able to invest in real estate.
What's something that separates Offer Now Idaho from any other real estate company?
It's really rare to find a company that can help you get into a home. Sure, they might throw a few thousand into a 401k that you can access when you're 65. How many people are going to help you either provide a rental property or a shelter over your own head? Through our off-market home buying program, we assist our employees in buying properties once they've achieved certain levels within the company. And that's really unique to people because you get that asset. You get to do whatever you want with it. And you're buying an off-market discounted property to improve the quality of your life and your family's life.
Yeah, not only that, we offer benefits and we have a very challenging and high growth energy startup feel to our work environment. So we are looking for people that want to make over 6 figures a year. Right now, we have a $3,000 referral program. If you know somebody that's looking for a new role, we will pay you $3,000 once that person is hired by us and they hit their 90-day mark. So if you know of anybody that's looking for a new job or looking to change their life, shoot me a DM at RealRyanWeimer on Instagram.
Let's get it.
There's a lot of people listening to this. Maybe they haven't hired an employee yet, or they're hiring their first one. I have some students that I coach. They're reluctant to have their first hire sign an employment agreement because they're afraid of what that means. It's a fear.
Yeah, and that fear of having those hard conversations and just disagreeing is, I mean, it's a valid fear because you just put so much time into this person, and then what if something happens? What if it blows up?
Yep.
And you have your heart set on this person because they'd just be so perfect.
Yep.
But if you can't get past one disagreement and you're constantly letting them just decide because you're so scared they'll leave, what kind of relationship is that?
It's not one that's going to last. That's for sure, right? You can probably get by in the near term. If it's a salesperson, maybe they'll be with you 6 months, a year, year and a half. It's not going to be somebody that you can grow a company with that's truly bought in because there's unspoken things. Eventually, you're going to drift. If expectations aren't talked about in a professional yet sometimes uncomfortable manner, people start diverting in their thoughts. They have different interpretations of where they're headed, where the company is headed, what they should get paid, time off, right? You have to nip these things in the bud right away. Talk about them up front. Get on the same page. Don't avoid them. That's silly. Just get on the same page and work it out. So I think like if you're afraid to have those conversations, it's probably because you just don't have the targets yet. Like you don't even really know what you're shooting for. Involve that other person. Have them come up with their targets and then go through them together. Hey, this is great. Wow, great. I didn't even think of that. That's a great target. Hey, this one over here, I think we should adjust it maybe to this. Maybe this one we remove. Get on the same page. Boom. This is what we're going off of. When you have that agreement, you can foster a culture of accountability and give people the space to own their own schedule. Because that's really what we're talking about here. Like if you are feeling like you need to micromanage, it's because you have failed as a leader to set the right expectations and targets and get on the same page with your people.
Yeah. And something that you said there just sparked back to when I first started. And I mean, I sat down with you and Corey and you're like, okay, well, we don't know what we don't know. So what should your job look like? You tell us, we'll tell you what we think. We'll see if it aligns. If there's anything that doesn't make sense, then we'll fight it out.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, I love my job.
Yes, but
I'm paid to say that, but
this is what people want, right? Like A players, they just want to know so that they can have their professional time, they can have their farm time, they can have their family time, whatever else they're passionate about in life. They just want to know. That's it. Like there's not insecurity that needs to come into play here. Like, man, we really want to bring Tori on board, and but man, if we ask her to do this, what if she says like no? What are we gonna do?
Then she says no.
And we just need to adapt, right? I've seen so many managers screw this up. Like this is the sign of a terrible manager or toxic or terrible leadership is just a total lack of transparency and just going through the motions and like the unspoken things and like, oh, I'm sure we're on the same page and whatever, instead of just like it's avoiding confrontation. That's what it is. It's avoiding confrontation.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's always going to come to a head, whether it comes to a small one or a big one, or you're either going to have a conversation where, hey, this is really uncomfortable, but maybe don't take off for 6 hours every single Monday. Or maybe it's going to be, hey, like this turned into a really big problem because now I never corrected this behavior and now you're taking 6 hours off every single day.
But again, if they're taking off 6 hours a day and they're still able to hit the targets that you guys have agreed to, it's not a them problem. It's a you problem. Like, set new targets. Talk together. Hey, I know we agreed to this. The company's growing. I want to be able to do more deals. I want to be able to expand. We want to take on another market. We have ambition. We have goals to do more contracts, more deals, help more people. That's going to directly help you do your farm or get to the next thing or buy a rental property or make a bunch of money, right? You have to tie it back into what they want and their vision so their vision can fit into yours. And then it becomes a helpful conversation of you not telling them what to do. You're like, hold on, what's important to you? How do I help you get there? Let's readjust the targets together. And you have to be okay if it's not a fit. Sometimes they're going to say like, sorry, I don't want that. That's okay. Move on, right? That's the hard thing. It's not, the analogy is dating or relationships, right? But like we all know people that have toxic relationships, it's just a matter of time before they blow up. It's not about necessarily saving them. It's just about people are on different wavelengths, and that's okay. Like we need to be totally okay with that. But you're not even going to give yourself a chance if you're just constantly avoiding confrontation. Well,
yeah, and there's nothing more embarrassing than not knowing that something isn't working and then finding out months and months and months later that it was never working and people were just not telling you.
100%. Okay. We do the intro call.
Yeah. So we do the intro call. And
sorry, I'm so passionate about this stuff. Like, I have failed so much in this department in the last 2+ years that I want people to know what mistakes to avoid and that there's a real and significant cost to avoiding doing the hard things. So sorry, go ahead, continue.
No, totally fine. Hiring is make or break. You either have the right people or you don't. And not having the right people is incredibly expensive, and it's way more than just a salary.
Totally.
So anyway, we get through the introduction call. If it's somebody that is showing signs of being a good fit for us and they also we're a good fit for them, then we move forward to a group sales interview. So what this is we put 3 to 4 candidates on a call together. We give them a mock cold calling script and we just kind of let it rip. We let them show their stuff. We see how they are interacting with different personality types. We throw some curveballs in there. We give them some objections. And we just kind of measure, okay, so if I act like a really aggressive personality, how are you going to respond? Are you going to back down and be like, whoa, or are you going to just kind of match that energy and meet me where I'm at? If I'm really quiet and timid, are you going to calm yourself down? Are you going to slow down and meet me there? Or are you going to make our timid seller cry? So these are valid things to know. And this is something that we really factor in. Why
do we do a group style? This is awkward.
It's so awkward.
Right? So so just to explain people how that goes, we actually have, after the intro call, it sounds like there might be some mutual interest. You get put into a group sales style role-playing interview, as Tori was mentioning. So you could be on there with one other person. You could be on there with 3 other people at the same time. So why do we do that?
Yeah. And so the biggest thing for that is we want to see how you are in uncomfortable situations. It's very weird to be on a call with 4 people and you don't even know if they're interviewing for the same job as you. So this could be your direct competition. It could be a future coworker. It could be somebody that already works there. It could be, maybe we just brought somebody random on and asked them to participate for funsies. You don't know. So you're in there with people you've never seen before, and you're being asked to show your best sales ability in front of all these strangers who are also salespeople, and they might be judging you. They're listening to what you're saying, and then they're probably thinking in the back of their mind what they would have done differently. And so you have to go in and face all of this awkwardness and face the potential failure and possible embarrassment. And that is the best way that we found to simulate the real job. I mean, because you're going to be in those situations in the real job. And so it's good to know how you'll do under pressure.
Totally. And by the way, we expect people to be nervous.
Well, yeah, who wouldn't be nervous?
Like a lot. Yeah. We don't expect you to be a robot. We expect you to have emotions and be nervous, but we want to see how people do in uncomfortable situations, right? Are they going to puff out their chests and have a bunch of ego? Are they going to shrink into a shell and be super submissive? Are they going to just be themselves and be kind of level-headed through the whole thing? And like, that's really what we're looking for.
Yeah. It's like making sure that you're the kind of person who, even if you're in this weird situation, you're going to do your best. You're going to ask hard questions. If you don't know what you're doing, you say, hey, can you clarify this for me? But being able to put yourself out there is the best trait that we can uncover there, because that tells us that you're going to be coachable and you're going to be somebody that actually cares to learn the process.
Awesome. Okay. So actually one step behind the group sales interview, let's talk about predictive index.
Yes. So we use a predictive index assessment, and this is multifaceted. So there are two portions of the predictive index, and that is the behavioral and the cognitive portions. So the behavioral is just kind of basic personality type questions. It's how I see myself, how other people see me. We dig into just those kinds of things and see just your personality style. Are you more driving? Are you more steady? Are you more of a precise person? Are you more subjective when it comes to just like rules and processes and those kinds of things? How social are you? Ryan is a lot more social than me, and so our predictive
I don't know about
index
that.
is like a little different.
Remember, I'm an engineer, so I think I'm still left of center. I might be right at center. I'd have to look, but
I am definitely not right at center for that. But it's very telling to see those personality types, because we have honed in the most successful personality types for each role based on these parameters. And so we can kind of pinpoint who's going to see which challenges when they start the role. And we're not necessarily looking for an exact fit, but we're looking for somebody who has the traits to overcome these challenges if it's something that we could see as a potential challenge long term.
Yeah. So 2 12-minute tests, or one might be like 5 minutes and the other one is 12 minutes.
One's not timed, and then the other one is.
Okay.
And
They're short.
Yeah. It's about 15 minutes of somebody's time.
Yeah. So one tells us the behavioral component, which is like, what's your default, right? When nobody's looking, when you're just being yourself, what's your mode of operation? Like, what is you're in flow. What does that look like? That's what that tells us. So people can do, if you're an introvert, you can do sales for a while, but it's going to feel a little more prone to burnout over a period of time because you're not in your core flow, right? Likewise, if you have like an introverted or an extroverted profile and you're sitting behind a desk doing spreadsheet work all day, you can probably do it for a while, but it's really not going to work out in the long term. There's just going to be a clash there. So that's what that tells us. The cognitive test is not an IQ test. It's actually a function of how fast can people pick things up and how quickly can people learn.
Yeah, it's more of a focus on how well you're going to do under pressure with really funky, complicated questions. And so it's very interesting to see just the feedback that comes from that one. And I mean, most people surprise themselves with how easy it is or how hard it is, because it's not an easy test. It's crazy hard, and it's hard by design. You're not meant to complete all of the questions, and you're not meant to get every question right, but the test is scored based on the way that you answer. And so it's really interesting to see. And it just basically measures your likelihood of how quickly you will learn the jobs that we're asking you to learn.
I can tell you both as an employer and an employee, this predictive index thing, it would have saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars in bad hires, wasted time, multiple years. We'd be way further ahead had we had it from the start. If you are just about to start hiring some people, Maybe you have 1 or 2 hires and you need a few more hires. It's a large upfront cost. I think it was like $5,000 or something for a year, which is a lot. But when you do the math about what a couple bad hires cost you, not only in salary, but in time, it is astronomical compared to just that cost. So the number one predictor of job success is cognitive ability. I'll say that again. The number one predictor of job success is cognitive ability. Do not skip over it. Do not skip over it. If you've ever had an employee that you're like, why do I have to ask that person to do something 6 times? Why is it that the 5th time doesn't work and then the 6th time they finally get it? It's likely because they have an incompatible COG score, a lower COG score. That's okay. It's just not going to be a fit for something that's fast-paced. That person probably needs a very rigid amount of structure and needs to be told what to do and have their hand held more often. And in a small company, in a startup culture, you just can't have that. It's a big time suck and a big issue in your organization. So predictive index, get it. Trust me, it'll pay for itself 10-fold, 100-fold. Get it. Okay. After the group interview, what do we do?
Yes. So after the group interview, we do a behavioral interview. And so that's just a fancy term for a one-on-one interview. We take all of the feedback that we collected from the group interview and we note anything that was really positive, anything that we want to learn more about, not necessarily negative. And we dig into that. So there are some standard interview questions. I like to both open and close with Q&A. That way, if they had any questions, they can ask them up front. If they have any questions after our conversation, then they can ask them at the end. And you'd be surprised just what the questions are at the beginning and then what the questions are following that interview, just after getting to know the person. And that's kind of how I frame it is we're getting to know you, the person, not just you, the salesperson. You've already shown your stuff. We know that you can overcome an objection now.
This is an interrogation, right? I mean, you're really
like the spotlight and everything.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. And so, yeah, because I'm a really mean person. And so I like to just try to hurt their feelings. That's my goal for the behavioral interview.
You know what? You could say that with a serious face and I would totally believe you. No, but I think the behavioral interview is where you learn about like people's past, and like what their mindset is, right? This is where we get into what we talked about in the prior episode, which is like when faced with adversity, what do they do?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you want to make sure that they're going to be a culture fit too, because from the group interview that they can hold their own. And now you want to make sure that they're not going to be driven crazy by things that you do. You want to make sure you're not going to be driven crazy by things that they do. And it's all about protecting your people and protecting them. Because if we don't do this, if we skip this step and they come on and they're not a good culture fit, they're going to be miserable or your team's going to be miserable. And I mean, they just left their job and they're going to have to do another life change if they're not a good fit once they come on. So it's essential to figure out what they're about. After this behavioral interview, we do something that's pretty unique and equally necessary, if not more necessary, and that's job shadowing. So
a lot of people skip over this part. Why do we do the job shadow?
And I wasn't a believer in it. I was like, yeah, this is a little bit silly. I'll humor you guys. But it's essential because, like I just mentioned, these people are about to leave their whole job. I mean, for a new job. And what happens if they come on the first day and they realize they hate it? They're going to have to find a new job again. And this job market is tough. They could be spending months in a job that they absolutely hate because they have no choice. And that's bad for them because they're going to be miserable. But it's also so detrimental to a company because if you have somebody that's not engaged and doesn't care, they're not going to set an appointment. And if they do, that seller is going to be like, that person didn't give a crap about me. I'm going to say whatever it takes to get them off the phone and I'm going to cancel.
Yep. Spot on. Yeah. I think the reason why we have this process the way it is and why there are so many steps is like you really want to give yourself the highest likelihood of success, both as employer and employee. You weed out a lot of people in that 15-minute intro call. We do the sales call first before the behavioral because we really want to see like, is this person going to be able to perform at all in the core function of the job. I think the easier thing to do, a lot of behavioral interviews, I'm not saying that this is the right way to do it, but it can be winged. The behavioral interview can be winged. You want to have that sales interview first because you just want to see, again, this is a weeding out process, right? You want to see, can this person hack it before you get into the behavioral, the job shadowing, and then the final interview, which is...
So the final interview is the real interrogation. That's when we stick Ryan on them. And
the last boss.
If you can get through the first bosses and you get to the final boss, you just have to overcome all of Ryan's objections and then you get a job. And so, I mean, it's not quite that scary, but I'll let you kind of explain what you're looking for.
No, it's not scary at all. It's actually, I want to learn more about what they want to accomplish. And I want to see if it's a fit. If they've already gone through the whole process, we know that they're qualified enough to do the job. It's more on the expectation setting now of this is how hard it's going to be. It's probably going to be the hardest job you've ever done. However, this is the upside. Like, this is all the things you can get and can accomplish. Employee discounted home buyer program. You know, our top salesperson doing almost $200,000 this year. This is the most important one, which is, yeah, the money's great, but you get to cash an emotional paycheck when you work with us every single day. You get to help people in your community and truly change their lives forever. This isn't that fluffy stuff that you hear all companies talk about in their core values and ooh-wee. No, like, you get to help people that are in horrible life situations, or on the other side, maybe just a small amount of pain. They want to trade a little bit of equity for speed and convenience, and everything in between. And even if you don't get that contract with that person, you are in their living room or you're on the phone with them and you're having a meaningful conversation to help them. Because the truth is, and this is what really sets us apart in Idaho as being Idaho's #1 trusted home buyer, it's about helping people, period. And if you go into the property genuinely trying to help someone, whether we get the contract or not, the ironic thing is you will do more business and you will do more deals and you will get more sales and you'll be able to help people at the same time. How cool is that? Everybody else, all our competition, they play the numbers game. They send out 100 lowball cash offers and they're like, great, if one accepts, then that's good for me. That is the wrong way to do things. You will not be able to sustain a business. You will not be able to sustain employees and people if you run a business that way. People need that emotional paycheck. They need to be able to have meaning in their job beyond just the financial component. So what you're feeling right now, if you're watching this or listening to this, like, this is real. This is stuff that we do on a daily basis. This is not an act. This is the #1 thing about why I think this is the coolest job that there is and the coolest career that there is, and everything about why we're going to get to 10 million here by 2028.
Yeah, well, something that we measure even is the number of people helped. Every single day in our meetings, we talk about people helped. One of our core values is providing value. And so a lot of people say that they cash an emotional paycheck with their company, but we truly live by that. And so it's cool to see. And I think that's worth emphasizing.
Yeah. And it's all the ones that we don't get the contract. It's like, hey, we're not the best fit here. You need a certain amount of money to be able to go do this. Go list it for sale by owner. Let me help you do that. Here's how you do it. Let me sit down with you and show you what buttons to click on Zillow and how to take the pictures. And hey, if you can wait until spring to list it, please wait until after the holidays to list your property so you get a higher value. Like, I know these are simple things, guys, but when you're in with a seller and you're trying to just have a person-to-person conversation and bring down the guard, you have to just, like, I'm here to help you. I don't know if we're the right fit. This might not even be one of the properties we're going to buy, right? But I'm going to help you regardless. Let me hear more about what you're trying to accomplish here.
Taking care of people, and the success follows. If you do the right thing, the success will always follow.
So what's your favorite question to ask in an interview?
Oh, man. I have a few favorites. One of my favorites that I get the best responses out of is if there was anything that you wanted leadership to know about you, work or personal, literally anything, what would it be? I mean, you'll get a lot of people that are like, oh, yeah, I'm a really hard worker. Oh, yeah, like I I care a lot, and you can tell me anything, and I'll always be receptive. And oh yeah, I like to learn. But you can also get people that are, I mean, you can see how passionate some people are. I had somebody that said, if you bring me on, I will literally give you 110% every single day in every single thing that you ask of me, because I know that I will be successful, and all I have here is myself. And so if you give me that chance, I'll show you. And that, I mean, that's
that's
pretty
not
cool. Like
yeah.
that's somebody that's bought in, they care, and they're going to give you everything.
That's really hard to fake.
Yeah.
When you say something like that, you have to have conviction behind those words, or else you sound stupid. Right?
Yeah.
I love that. Did we hire that person?
Yeah, that was Jake.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. There it is.
And you want those people. You want those people that are like, hey, I'm going to give you everything. And I don't know all the answers, but if you give me that shot, I'll give you everything. And I'm not afraid to fail. I know I'm going to mess up, but just give me that shot. And yeah, he hasn't made us regret it yet.
Love it. Absolutely love it. My favorite interview question is, let's say we bring you on. What would be the reason it doesn't work out? People are like, oh, you went negative. That's a good question. What would be? So answers that we're looking for are, it'd be me. It'd be my choice if it didn't work out. As long as I have the right training, the right tools, a manager that's there for me, like it would be my choice. It would be me not willing to put in the work to get there, but I can't see that happening. That is like the response more or less that we're looking for. The responses we're not looking for.
Say, what's your least favorite response to that?
The leads suck. The leads suck, right? Like, of course, marketing is always going to say that sales is the problem. Sales is always going to say that marketing's the problem. There are thousands of people in our database. I can promise you leads are not the problem.
They could be. I'm just kidding.
Well, like, listen, there's people that I've interviewed before where they're like, we only do inbound leads. And if there's not an inbound lead that comes in, this is actually quite common in car dealerships. If there's not an inbound lead that comes in, or there's not somebody that walks in, I just sit there and it drives me nuts. And I'm like, what? They don't even, and they're like, yeah, if they let me do some prospecting to like bolster up my pipeline and do more deals, I would love that. And I'm like, there's businesses out there that run this way. Not well, but they run.
I had somebody that asked me if there was a limit as to how many calls they were allowed to make. And I'm like, you can make as many calls as, don't call people at midnight. They won't be happy about that. But you can make as many calls as you want. If you want to exceed your metrics every single day, please do.
But this is why too, like if you're an A player out there and you're listening to this, or you know an A player, you should be interviewing the interviewer, right? And you should be asking these questions. And if they have the wrong answer to these questions, I don't need to tell you this, but run the other way, right? They're not the company for you. Or if their answers don't make sense, if they can't articulate it, if they beat around the bush, or they're not transparent, or they're like, well, you know, that's not really my department, and so and so. I mean, that's not the answer you want to hear, right? That's a warning sign that, hey, there are some things that they keep hush hush that I'm not allowed to know about. I don't like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we try to give as much time for questions as possible, because I mean, you can tell a lot about a candidate by the questions that they ask. They can run the whole interview and you can ask not a single question, and you'll still know if they're a good fit based on what they want to know and how they react to what you tell them.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. So in closing, why should somebody want to join Offer Now Idaho? Why is now the right time?
This is the perfect time to join Offer Now Idaho, because we're only going to go up from here. I mean, jump in on a startup and you have so many untapped opportunities for growth. I mentioned earlier, the boat's leaving either way, and you can be on it or you can be waving as we take off. But yeah, if you want to be part of something that is truly aiming to help this community, I mean, the people that we help there are so many. Yeah, so if you want somebody that you can grow with, if you want these opportunities just for, I mean, explosive success, this would be the great company to jump in on. If you just want a 9-to-5, maybe not. But
yeah,
I mean, if you're willing to put in that work and you see the vision and you want to be a part of that, that's who we're looking for.
Love it. Well, Tori Runyon, thank you so much for coming on. I got a ton of value out of this just talking about it, and we're going to a meetup after this, and I'm all passionate and geared up. I'm so excited for our future and everything we're about to accomplish. So if somebody knows an A player, even if they're not a salesperson or maybe they are a salesperson, how can they contact you?
Yeah, so they can send a resume via email. That's going to be Tori, Tori, at offernowidaho.com. I check my email every day. I don't end my day until I have 0 in the inbox. So if you send it,
you better
I'll
be careful.
Challenge accepted. See how busy you can make me.
Awesome. Love it. All right, guys, we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.